What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Evolution Cup submitted to the channel by Mexico Beckham, who's running a triple costume hat team and actually pulling off some pretty crazy wins in the 27 to 2800 elo range with Ursaring, Florigato and Dartrix. Now if you're wondering where my battles have been, I'm still pushing for Legend, and at one point today I actually reached as high as the 2980s, but I'm sure some of you saw my last video, and whilst I do think that was a one-off set in terms of the magnitude and frequency of the bugs and lag that I was experiencing, unfortunately I'm still losing between like 3 and 5 battles every single day due to bugs with the new code, and to be honest, it's driving me crazy. I know I should have already hit Legend, and honestly probably a few days ago by now, and as a content creator I can't really afford to run the same team for like 4 or 5 days in a row because I want to bring you guys unique teams with every video, and I also didn't want to showcase that team before I hit Legend because it would make that final push just a little bit harder, as I basically give everyone else an advantage of knowing exactly what I'm running. Luckily for me, Mexico Beckham sent in the submission, and hopefully I can finally hit Legend tomorrow. However, it's not really going to do that much for me because at that point no one's going to care about the team I use because the cup will be going away in like 3 hours after I post that video. So yeah, definitely disappointing, but I thought I'd let you guys know what's been going on. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. For those of you that do enjoy costume Pokemon, what type of hat would you like to see featured for the next costume Pokemon, or which Pokemon would you like to see get a new hat in Pokemon Go? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know if you've got a combination of a Pokemon and a specific type of hat that you'd like to see. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Ursaring into a Nidorina. Of course, Nidorina is pretty rough for our backline, so we're happy to see it here in the lead. This is probably just a marginal loss for the Ursaring, especially as a non-shadow, as 2 Swifts won't quite deal enough damage to get the knockout, whereas of course, with a debuff to our defense from that Poison Fang, the second Poison Fang likely will get the KO. So we're going to fire off the first one, we're going to throw the next one on the CMP tie. The opponent isn't going to make a catch or anything like that, so Swift, number 2, is going to connect, and unfortunately, just narrowly missing out on KOing. However, we've got them very low to the point where we can definitely just come in and either peck or leafage farm them down. We're going to come in with the Dartrix, go for their pack farm down, and they're going to come in with a Dusclops, which could be quite tricky for us, as a lot of them in this meta are on Ice Punch, but we're not going to give them the opportunity to throw. Instead, full sending Brave Bird, and Brave Bird is going to connect. We're now going to look to swap out, and because we debuffed our defense by 3 stages, the opponent might actually settle for a Shadow Punch there, which of course isn't resisted by Florigato. It is unfortunately not a Dark-type Pokemon like its evolution, but still, Shadow Punches are doing a lot less damage than the potential Ice Punch. At this point, we're going to fire off the Energy Ball, which of course is a buff for this season. Energy Ball is going to be no shielded. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Morgrim, and unfortunately, they can fully fast move farm us down. Now, Dartrix is actually fairly bulky here, so if the opponent tries to commit to a full fast move farm down, there is the potential that we actually get to 3 Seed Bombs before they can do that. You also might be wondering why we're running Seed Bomb instead of Energy Ball on the Dartrix. Well, I guess the pacing is probably the reason, and as you can see, the opponent committing to that farm down, but they're not getting there in time because we get to 2 Seed Bombs and a 3rd Seed Bomb here just before they farm us down. Seed Bomb number 3 from this range gets the knockout, and we're able to take that game. So heading into the next battle, we're going to see Ursaring in the lead here up against a Primeape. So of course that is not a great lead matchup for us. We're going to be swapping out into Florigato, and unfortunately if they've got Ice Punch or if they full send a close combat, well, we're not going to bother shielding anyways, but they do just bait with a Rage Fist. They're now going to come in with a Celio, which honestly not that bad for us. Of course, they put us into range where they can just farm us down, but first Energy Ball is going to grab a shield advantage. They do get quite an aggressive farm down, which is unfortunate for us, but we can now come back in with our Ursaring. We're probably going to have to no-shield the first charge move here, however, we can then go for a close combat. So at this point, the opponent is going to fire off the Surf. Because we're not a Shadow, we're actually able to tank that relatively comfortably, and they won't be able to fast move farm us down. So I think at this point, we probably farm up to a close combat and a Swift before throwing, and that way we can get the knockout here, and then if they come back in with the Primeape, we can probably grab the final shield as well. So at this point, we're going for the close combat. Close combat gets the KO there. If they come back in with the Primeape, we're going straight for the Swift. We're not even bothering to check what they come in with, actually. We go straight for the Swift. Swift gonna grab the final shield. We can now come in with the Dartrix. A little bit of lag there, And at this point, we are going to no-shield this, calling that they're not going for an Ice Punch, and the opponent does just go for another Rage Fist. The fact that they didn't Ice Punch into our Florigato earlier in the battle probably implies that they weren't running it. So that's honestly great for us. We can now go for a Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb gonna be no-shielded, but we will need 2 moves to get the knockout. This time around, we are gonna shield, and it is just a Shadow Punch bait. However, we kind of needed to shield something at this point anyways. We're now full sending the Brave Bird here. Brave Bird, does this KO? Yes, it does. And Primeape, I'm not sure if they reach another charge move. No, Primeape not able to get there in time. We can peck farm them down, and we're able to take that game. So into the next battle, we're going to see a Charger Bug in the lead. So once again, probably great to see it here. Of course, our backline, well, at least Florigato, is going to resist the Volt Switch damage, but X-Scissor is going to hit for super effective, and then Dartrix is just going to take neutral damage from everything. Here, we're going to farm up to the back-to-back Swifts. We're going for the first one. Swift, number 1, is going to be no-shielded, and the second Swift going to be coming through here. This should be enough damage to actually get the knockout, so let's see if they shield. No, the opponent not going to shield, and we actually do take the zero shield scenario. They're going to come in with a Shadow Primeape, so now we can come in with the Dartrix, and this time around the opponent is going to farm up to a potential Ice Punch, so definitely going to shield. We have to respect it here, and the opponent is unfortunately going to bait with a Rage Fist. However, that's fine with us. We can actually just commit to a full fast move farm down. Are they going for Ice Punch this time around? Yes, they are there, but of course we can just double shield, but they're going to have a Shadow Golbat in the back. That is definitely not ideal for us. We're going to bait with a Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb, do they respect it? No, they actually call the bait. That is an insane call from the opponent. A Brave Bird pretty much just one-shots them, but unfortunately for us, there's just no way back into this game now. They've still got 2 shields. We can reach a last-second energy ball, but they don't actually need to shield this. But they probably will start shielding at this point, because otherwise, like, what do they shield? But either way, yeah, unfortunately, not much we can do here anymore. So, of course, all shields are down on our end. I guess our only win condition is if they call a bait again. So, you know what? We might as well full send the Brave Bird here. Do they shield this time around? Brave Bird is shielded by the Shadow Golbat, which means, of course, Wing Attack takes us out, and we end up losing that game. But into the next battle, going to see another Primeape in the lead. And by the way, I've not edited these battles, so these are the speed that this trainer sent them to me. So I am feeling like they're a little bit slower than usual, so maybe that is the case. Usually I do try and like adjust for that, but this time around I just forgot to do that. So apologies if they are a little bit slower. It does feel like I'm kind of having to like extend some of the things that I'm saying here each time that a Pokemon comes in, because it just feels like they are a little bit slower than I usually commentate over. But either way, we're going to see a Dartrix of the opponent's end, and we are going to likely use... No, never mind. We're actually not going to shield here. The opponent also on Seed Bomb. We are going to bank a second, well, a lot of energy there, come in, catch the next Seed Bomb onto our Dartrix, where, of course, that is double resisted. And then at this point, the opponent is going to be fully fast move farmed down, so they swap out into Charger Bug. Now, this is a bit awkward for us because Seed Bomb is going to be resisted here, so we kind of need to full send a Brave Bird. So we're going to shield the first move. The opponent, are they going to shield here? We are full sending right away. Brave Bird going to be coming through here. Brave Bird is not shielded. That should be game over. They come back in with a Primeape, but we've got so much energy here. Likely we go for back-to-back Seed Bombs and then swap out into our Ursaring, but let's see if that's what we do. We go for Seed Bomb number 2. This should be grabbing the final shield. I mean, technically they probably can still live this, but they're going to shield anyways. We come in, we're going to make sure we get the knockout as we full send a close combat, so the opponent just concedes the match. So into next battle, another Primeape in the lead. This time, we're actually just going to stay in this matchup here. We're going to lose CMP, unfortunately, but do they full send a close combat? No, they're going to bait with another Rage Fist. So it seems like every single Primeape has tried to bait so far, and at this point, we just can't be bothered to shield these baits. So we go for the Swift, we grab a shield advantage, and then we swap out into Florigato, and we're met with a Charger Bug. So not the best matchup for us, and we are going to opt for the extra fast move, which is quite interesting, but I guess we will tank an X-Scissor just barely, but they're actually not on X-Scissor, and instead, they go for a Discharge. So of course, that's fine with us. That is resisted damage. We can fire off the Play Rough. Play Rough does decent damage there, and we can actually also reach an Energy Ball before the opponent reaches a potential crunch. So Energy Ball is resisted damage, but from this range, it actually gets the knockout there up against the Charger Bug as they come back in with the Primeape, and they can't commit to a farm down. They are forced to throw some energy, otherwise we would reach yet another move. So of course, they can just settle for the Rage Fist this time around, but we can come in with our Dartrix. Likely, we can shield once and then just go for a full peck farm down. So of course they are boosted in their attack stat. The opponent is going to go for a close combat, which would have still done more damage than a Rage Fist. However, at this point they're going to swap out into their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Doublade. Now of course a Sacred Sword is going to hit for super effective. That will definitely take us out, but we're just going to stay in here and basically just apply some fast food pressure with the Shadow Claws. That should put them into range where a Brave Bird will KO, and we're able to grab the final shield with a CMP tie on the close combat. So of course at this point Sacred Sword will be getting the knockout even if they fully undercharge that, which means we can come back in with the Dartrix, and as long as the opponent isn't able to swap out and make the catch, we can fire off the Brave Bird. Brave Bird resisted damage but it gets the knockout. They come back in with the Primeape, and once again we can just peck farm them down to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, we're going to see a Fracture in the lead. So, some nice spice on the opponent's end. We're going to be swapping out into Florigato, and unfortunately, we are met with a Metang, a Pokemon that completely walls us, and as well, they've got super effective Fury Cutters to just apply a lot of fast food pressure. Now, like I mentioned, of course, we're not a Dark and Grass type Pokemon, otherwise the opponent likely could just go for a full Fury Cutter farm down. At least we do force them to throw a Side Shock there before, of course, we do go for a farm down. So at this point, we're going to come back in with the Ursaring. We are going to shield the first charge move, as the opponent is going to go for another Side Shock there. And can we go for a full farm down? We are opting for it, but they will reach yet another move. So we're actually going to double shield the Ursaring. We're going to come out with so much energy here, and the opponent is just going to allow for that full fast move farm down. They come back in with the Fracture, and we're going straight for the Swift. Of course, Swift should be grabbing a shield here, and then likely we're going to swap out into our Dartrix, and we're able to catch a charge move. But let's see, what is this move here? It's going to be a Night Slash, probably fishing for a potential boost on the Fracture, and at this point, we're actually just going to settle for a Seed Bomb. Now, this is resisted damage. Honestly, an Energy Ball would probably get close to KOing from this range. The opponent uses a shield there, and then they're going to fire off the charge move. The opponent is going to go and full send a Dragon Claw, which gets the knockout. But now we can come back in with the Ursaring. But unfortunately, their final Pokemon is a Marshtomp, and it's a non-Shadow. So close combat, no, sorry, is a Shadow, but it doesn't quite put them into Shadow Claw farm down range, which is quite painful for us. But Fracture did just use a lot of energy. If we can tank one Dragon Claw here, or sorry, one Dragon Tail, we can get to a last second Swift with the Ursaring, which means Swift is going to get the knockout here because Fracture is a very classy Pokemon, and so we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Ursaring into a Dusclops. So a great lead matchup for us. However, we don't actually have any charging pressure whatsoever, but the opponent helps us out because they swap out after throwing one Hex, and they swap into Celio, where of course, close combat is going to hit for huge damage. We're now going to swap out into Florigato because whilst they do have Powder Snow, they are very unlikely to be running something like Aurora Beam, so of course we can take the charge move pretty comfortably, and now they come back in with the Dusclops, where again, this is kind of fine for us because we do have access to Energy Ball. Ursaring doesn't have any threatening charge moves at all. Everything is actually double resisted, so here they can look to overfarm. That's fine with us. At this point, we've done enough damage to put them into range where eventually we can likely Shadow Claw farm them down. So we come back in with the Ursaring. I'm probably not going to see a shield here because, yeah, Ice Punch isn't going to do all that much damage. However, they might reach another charge move before we can fully farm them down, but they're actually going to swap out into a Chansey. Now, Chansey is a really annoying Pokemon in this meta. I don't think it's very good at all. I've personally not lost to a single one so far, but I'm actually not running any Ghost-type Pokemon on my team, so I can imagine that if you have a Ghost-type, like a Dusclops, for example, then it's basically just an instant loss. But I have to say, like, it can't be fun running Chansey in this meta, because I feel like it just takes years to get to a Hyper Beam to deal any meaningful damage. You can see they opt for just a Dazzling Gleam, but that is not going to threaten a shield whatsoever, and they're basically just giving us the opportunity to massively overfarm here. We can fire off the Brave Bird, and we're still not really in threat of them ever fast move farming us down, so we're just going to keep on continuing to overfarm, and each time we throw a Brave Bird, we are going to farm up to very nearly 100 energy. That way, if they do swap back into their other Pokemon, then we're in a great position. But actually, we don't even need to do that. Instead, we're going to be swapping out, making a catch of the Dazzling Gleam. Honestly, it's quite crazy to know the chance he counts here. That might have just been a vibes catch, but either way, the opponent realizes we still got 2 shields. There is nothing Chansey can do there, and so they just concede the match. So yeah, honestly, like, one of the most boring Pokemon you can ever run in the Go Battle League. But into the next battle, we're going to see Doublade in the lead. So pretty good matchup for us, but like I mentioned, we don't really have that much charging pressure. However, this time around, at least close combat is going to be single resisted rather than double resisted. So it probably will threaten to get the knockout from this range. So we probably will grab a shield. But either way, we're taking pretty much no fast move pressure whatsoever, as of course we are a normal type Pokemon. We're gonna look to swap out. We try to catch a Sacred Sword, doesn't work out for us. The opponent banks a ton of energy before swapping out into a second ghost type in the form of Dusclops. Now this is going to be the Ice Punch. It does big damage, but we're actually able to hold on relatively comfortably there, and they won't be able to Hex Farm us down just yet, even though we full sent a Brave Bird, which means we can reach a last second Seed Bomb, and likely the opponent isn't going to bother shielding here, so Seed Bomb will get the knockout. However, unfortunately, they will get a nice farm down, so we're going to swap back into our Ursaring, and we're going straight for a Swift. Of course, this is triple resisted, but the opponent actually uses their final shield, and that is fine with us. At this point, we're happy to let it go down. Hopefully, Florigato isn't going to be completely walled. We actually barely hang on there, but they come in with a Palpitoad. They get the full farm down, which isn't ideal. However, what is ideal is that we come in with Florigato, and this should be game over. It's quite unlikely that any Palpitoad is running like Sludge Wave for coverage, so they fire off the Water Pulse. We can commit to a full fast move farm down, and that's game over there. Of course, they can maybe hang on here, possibly live an Energy Ball. Energy Ball is, nope, never mind, it's going to get the knockout anyways, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Morgrem in the lead. So not the best matchup for us, just because they are going to resist the Shadow Claw damage. Potentially, maybe could have farmed up to a close combat first, maybe threaten a shield. However, maybe we would prefer to just guarantee some damage there, and then swap out into our Florigato. So at this point, we're going to no-shield this. The opponent is going to full send a Play Rough, which does big damage. They then swap into Doublade, and unfortunately, we barely miss out on throwing a Charge Reef there. So I guess that is a bit of a misplay on our end. It looks like we were trying to go for a Play Rough. Either way, we're going to come back in with the Ursaring. Not the best position, just because they are ahead on energy. However, we are going to likely double shield, try and deal as much damage as possible with our Shadow Claws. But unfortunately, it looks like we won't quite be able to go for a full fast move farm down. Maybe we could have swapped out and tried to make a catch there, but instead, we're going to fire off a Swift. This is triple resisted, but it actually gets the knockout from that range. Honestly, I'm quite surprised by that, but they come back in with the Morgrem. We're going for the Swift here. Swift is likely going to grab a shield at this point. Now we swap out into our Dartrix. Remember, the opponent did full send a Play Rough last time, so this should just be a foul play. Foul play, still going to deal some decent damage here, but we get the full farm down, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Dusclops. So at this point, we are full sending the Brave Bird. Of course, we kind of need what the hell, what was that stutter? We kind of need the damage here, but I think, unfortunately, our Ursaring is just going to be too low as the opponent. Going to farm up to back-to-back charge views. We have zero charge view pressure whatsoever, which means they can fire off the first one here. Even a Shadow Punch easily takes us out, and then a Ice Punch will definitely take out the Ursaring. We don't quite have a close combat loaded. Swift definitely would not get the knockout, but unfortunately, Ice Punch will be taking out the Ursaring, and we end up losing that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see Ursaring into a Togetic lead. So once again, pretty good to see it here. Of course, something like a Dartrix is going to have a fairly neutral matchup, just because we do have Peck and Brave Bird. But certainly Florigato is not going to appreciate this matchup whatsoever. So we're just going to look to stay in. And because they go for Heat Wave, we can actually overfarm by a single Shadow Claw and then go for back-to-back Swifts. Honestly, Swifts dealing decent damage here. Shadow Claws have put them into range where a second Swift likely will get the knockout. No, actually, they just barely hang on. That is unfortunate for us, but we're just going to no-shield this, as we don't really necessarily need Switch Advantage, since we do have two Grass-type Pokemon in the back, and hopefully this is their best answer to Grass-type Pokemon. But let's see, they're going to come in with a Primeape. We're going to choose to stay in here, and we can live an Ice Punch, so I don't mind no shielding here at all. The opponent is going to go for the Ice Punch there, but we're able to hang on, and this is likely going to grab a shield with the Energy Ball, in which case we can then swap out into our Dartrix, and then of course these Pecks are hitting for super effective damage. Of course, Ice Punch is going to be double super effective here, so definitely we just shield this anyway. Nope, never mind, we're going to call the bait. That's just a Rage Fist. That is actually a crazy call there, because we have no reason not to shield there, but honestly, crazy cool. We go for the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb gets the knockout. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Shadows Wireless, and unfortunately, this is still a tricky situation to be in, but we've still got two shields. We farm up two very close to back-to-back charge trees. We should be looking fine here. Brave Bird, number one, is not shielded. It gets the one shot, and so so we're able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.